For this tutorial, I'll be going over how to create functions. I want you to go and open up a code editor of your choice, whether it's Dreamweaver, Sublime, Notepad++, whichever it is that you feel comfortable using. Once you have an empty document open up, make sure it's in an HTML format. I want you to go and save it. So we're going to go save. And I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this Functions. Click Create. And I'm going to type in function tutorial.html. I'm going to save that. Alright. Now I'm going to go ahead and change this title here. And I'm going to type in how to create functions. I'm going to save that. I'm going to grab the URL to this page and I'm going to paste it into a browser. Firefox is a great browser for code editing. I highly recommend using it. There's a lot of different plugins, different tools that you can download that can be extremely useful. One of these tools is called Web Developer. Alright. Now, right now we don't see anything here, but we do see right here in this tab it says how to create functions. That's for what we typed here into the title. So now what we're going to do is we are going to declare our script tags. So when you're writing JavaScript, you always need to have your functions, any JavaScript that you write inside of script tags. So that's the beginning and closing script tag right here. Alright, and now we're going to go to our body. And we are going to put in a button here. So we're just going to do button. And we're going to type in hello world. Alright, so if we refresh the page, we now have a button that says hello world. If we click on it, it doesn't do anything. But with a little bit of JavaScript, we can add in some interactivity. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do an onClick equals. Now what the statement is right here is this sets it up so when you click on the button, it will call a function or it'll do whatever you specify within these two quotes. Now we are going to actually call a function. Now right now we haven't written any function, but we're going to declare a function. So we're going to call this call phrase. Alright, and you always need to make sure that you have your two parentheses at the end and then a semicolon. Now what this does is this calls the function. Whenever you call a function, you need to have your two parentheses here. And now what we can go up here is we can type in function call phrase. And we make sure we have our two parentheses here. And then we do our two curly brackets. And now we have just set up a function so that we can start typing in whatever we want it to do. Now functions are modularized pieces of code. Functions are ones that you can use over and over again. It's a way to keep your code clean and simple. Alright, so we're just going to put in an alert box in here. So we're going to say alert, and we're going to say hi. So we're going to save that. We're going to refresh the browser. Oh, okay. Refresh the browser, and now if we click on Hello World, we get this alert pop-up box that says hi. So we have just set up a function that's on an onClick event that calls this and alerts hi. Overall pretty simple, but this function isn't particularly useful. So what we want to do is we want to actually pass in a value. So inside the onClick, right in here, we're going to put in two single quotes. And the single quotes allows us to pass in string values. And we're just going to type in howdy. Now, since we're passing in a variable right here, we need to specify the name of a variable right up inside these two parentheses right here. So we're just going to call this phrase. And then we're going to delete this right here. Make sure there's no quotes, because now that it's just a variable, we can copy what we have here and paste it right here. Now if we save this and refresh the page, click Hello World, and now it says Howdy. And we can put in whatever we want right here. We can type in, "This is a beautiful day." Let me save that. Refresh it. And now it passes that value right directly to our function. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we can pass in a second variable as well. And for this one we're going to say horrible. Okay. And then we'll go up here. Now since we've got two sets of variables that are in between two different quotations here, we're going to need to have two here as well. So I'm just going to call this phrase 2. Now, it doesn't really matter what I name it here. This is just a word that I came up with. You can really type anything that you want the name of the variable to be in these two spots here. Alright, now if I want to alert both of these variables at the exact same time, I'm going to do a plus sign, and I'm going to put a single quote. Now, anything that's inside here is a string, just like right here is a string. And so I'm just adding in a space. I'm going to add in a colon, and then I'm going to close the quotes right here. Then I've got my plus sign. So now I'm going to add in phrase 2. Now that I've saved that, refresh this page, click on Hello World, and now it says, "This is a beautiful day, horrible." So we've got the first phrase that's showing up right here, which is all of this right here. Then we've got a space, which we've specified here, a colon, just like we've got there, and then another space, and then we close the string, and then we add in the second variable. So we've just added two variables to create one alert that we can see right here. Alright. Now another thing that we can do is we can create functions and we can return different values. So now we're going to create another function. So we're going to call function, and we're going to call it return results. So we put in our two parentheses here. We set up our curly brackets. And the action that we're going to do for this function is we're going to set it up. So we are going to declare return results inside this function, inside the call phrase function. And we're just going to pass in phrase and phrase 2. Alright. Now we go to return results, and we can create our own separate variable, and we're going to call this var result equals, and then we're going to do phrase plus, then our two single quotes, space, and then after the second quote we're going to do another plus, and we're going to do phrase 2. Alright, so this right here will now have the value of both of these at the exact same time. So it would say, "This is a beautiful day, horrible," with the space in between, because we've got that specified right here. And now we're going to do return result. Now, right now no value is getting to this function because we haven't actually specified the variables here. So we're going to do raise, comma, raise2. Now we have access to these two variables right here. And now what we can do here is we can set up a variable here that says var returned results equals the function that we've called and the values that are getting passed into it. And now we can do an alert and do returned results. Alright, now if we click Hello World, it says this is a beautiful day, horrible. Now, we've essentially got two different functions that we've created. They're doing the exact same thing. We're passing into the call phrase function that just has the two values, and then we're sending those two values to another function that's called return results, and that just adds it together. It returns the result back to here, so the returned results here has what's been passed through here, and then we're alerting it here. Now, what we've created here isn't all that useful. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to pass in some numbers instead. Now, since we're not going to be passing in a string, we're not going to be using the single quotes. We're just going to be passing in a number. So we're going to pass in 5, and we'll pass in 3. So 5 and 3. Numerical values do not need single quotes around them. Only text really does. Okay. And just to make things a little bit relevant, I'm going to do number 1 and number 2. And I'm going to call this variable right here added results. I'm going to type in number 1 here and number 2 here. And then I'm going to go here and call this number 1 and number 2. Okay. Now I want to add these two values together. Now since they're both numbers, we should be able to add them both together. So we've got number 1 plus number 2. And this will get assigned to this variable right here, which is then returned back to this function right here. So the returned results, or the return results, comes back with a value, and then it's going to be alerted. So let's save it and refresh it. So now we're going to say, click on this. Oh, and it looks like we've got a bug. So let's just double check, make sure we've got everything set up correctly. So we've got result, number, oh, added results. So we changed the name here, but we did not change it here. So we'll replace that. Refresh this, click Hello World, and it looks like we still have a bug in here somewhere. So this is where that toolkit that I was telling you about comes in handy. So I'm going to click on here, and it says number 2 is not defined. So I can click on this right here. Alright, so we've got number 1. Oh, and that's our problem right there. So I just put number 1 here as the variable, and then I just put number here when this should have been a number 2. Now this number 2 variable actually has a result. Alright, now it gives us a result of 8. So 5 plus 3 would be 8. Now what if we want to specify what type of action it does? So now we can pass in a string value, and we're just going to type in add. And then we're going to go up here, and we're going to pass in another variable. It's called action. I'm going to go up here, call it action. I'm going to call this just results. Results. Alright, so we're passing in two numbers and the action that we want to do with those numbers, which would in this case be add. Okay, now since we're passing in three different variables here, we're going to pass in three different variables here as well. Or the three here is what's going to be placed in here, so we're going to do action here as well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do an if statement. If action is equal, now when you do your two equal signs, that's a comparison, so it's comparing action, so the variable action, and if it is equal to add, then we want to do this statement right here. And then we're going to do like an else statement. So if the action that was not passed through was not add, then we want to set it up so it does something else instead. So in this case, I'm going to set it so it actually subtracts. So it's going to subtract number 2 from number 1. Alright, so let's refresh it. Alright, we're getting 8 because we told it to add. Now if we just remove the value there, refresh it, we're going to get a 2. Because if it's not getting the value add being passed through, then it's going to, by default, subtract. Alright, but let's just add in a few more parameters, or a few more statements. So we're going to do else if. Now the else if statement allows us, so if the if statement is not true, then it will go down to the next statement. And if this statement isn't true, then it will go on to the next and to the next until it hits the else, or whatever you've specified in your code. So now we're going to do action compared to subtract. Alright, and so we'll just put that there. Then we'll do another else if action is divide, then we'll want to divide them. So we'll just do this slash here. So it's going to be number 1 slash number 2 for dividing. Otherwise, we'll have a default to var result equals number 1 times number 2. Alright, so we still do not have a value in here, so it's going to multiply them together. So let's refresh this and see if that's what it does. So we click here. Now it gives us 15. So 5 times 3 is 15. So that is correct. Now if we want it to divide, then we'll just type in divide. So divide is getting passed into this function. So that's the action. This variable is passed into here, so into the return results. So go to this function, return results, and this variable right here has the value, a divide. So it goes through the if statement, and it sees, okay, action is equal to divide, so it's going to come up with the result, and then it's going to return it, and then we're going to alert the results. So we're going to save this, refresh the page, click Hello World, and now we get 1.666666, etc. 7. And so that's 5 divided by 3. Now let's do a nice easy number. So let's do 15 divided by 3. So that gives us a nice solid number of 5. Alright, and that is how you create functions, and that's how you call them. And that concludes this tutorial.